Good morning and welcome to our usual Saturday morning mix at New Covenant Parish Church of fun and faith, of the auspicious and the suspicious, the saintly and the silly, the glorious and the uproarious. It's tea in the hall.
To tea in the hall, come one and come all, from Saturdays at 9. There's no bacon rolls, no scones, no snowballs, and nothing to drink at all. But we will share friendship and fellowship, fun quizzes, some stories, some talk. So might you in tea and a biscuit all day, please join us for tea in the hall. Oh, the doors are shut, the church all locked up, there's nothing going on in the hall, but just the same we'll praise God's name, He doesn't change at all. So now it's time in your house and mine to answer to the call. Bring your in cup and come and sup with us, tea in the hall.
Well, it's a nice bright day outside, so while we're nice and fresh and our brains are in good order, we're going to begin straight away with our quiz. Quiz time, and thanks again to Christine Wilson for sending in this quiz. And this time the quiz is called the B group because all of the answers begin with the letter B, and if it's a name, then the surname, the family name begins with the letter B. Question number 1. Who wrote the novel The Da Vinci Code? Who wrote the novel The Da Vinci Code? And the answer was Dan Brown. Question number 2. What would a bibliophile collect? What would a bibliophile collect? And the answer is books. Question number 3. Used in computing, what name is given to a number system using only zeros and ones? Used in computing, what name is given a number system using only zeros and ones? And the answer is binary. Question number 4. Sofia is the capital city of what European country? Sofia is the capital city of what European country? And the answer is Bulgaria. Question number 5. In 1985, who became the youngest winner of the men's singles title at Wimbledon? In 1985, who became the youngest winner of the men's singles title at Wimbledon? And the answer is Boris Becker. Question number 6. Who was UK Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007? Who was UK Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007? And the answer is Tony Blair. Question number 7. One of the world's ancient wonders, the Hanging Gardens, were said to be found in what city? One of the world's ancient wonders, the Hanging Gardens, were said to be found in what city? And the answer is Babylon. Question number 8. Complete the title of the Rimsky-Korsakov orchestral work, Flight of the... Complete the title of the Rimsky-Korsakov orchestral work, Flight of the... And the answer is Bumblebee. Question number 9. What city hosted the 1992 Summer Olympics? What city hosted the 1992 Summer Olympics? And the answer is Barcelona. Question 10, final question. In which 1995 film did Mel Gibson play William Wallace? In which 1995 film did Mel Gibson play William Wallace? And the answer is Braveheart. So you can add up your total. I think that was a fairly challenging quiz. Some of the questions were challenging. So if you got 7 or above, then that was very good. 7 or above is good. Give yourself a wee pat at the back. And thanks again to Christine for this week's quiz time. And now we meet up again with our friends from Cumnock, Ruth and Alec Douglas. And they're going to sing for us a very haunting song called The Call.
This song was written for the Chronicles of Narnia soundtrack, the Prince Caspian film, by a wonderfully talented artist called Regina Spektor. It was later then taken up by the Royal British Legion as part of their Poppy appeal, and a group of young ladies called the Poppy Girls took this song to number 1. This is called The Call.
It started out as a feeling which then grew into a hope, which then turned into a quiet thought, which then turned into a quiet word. And then that word grew louder and louder until it was a battle cry. Oh, come back when you call me. No need to say goodbye. Just because everything's changing doesn't mean it's never been this way before. All you can do is try to know who your friends are as you head off to the war. Pick a star on the dark horizon and follow the light. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. Now we're back at the beginning. It's just a feeling and no one knows yet. But just because they can feel it too doesn't mean that you have to forget. Let your memories go stronger and stronger till they're before your eyes. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye.
Many thanks to Alec and to Ruth for that beautiful song. Alec says that wee instrument he plays is called a ukulele. I actually have to keep telling him not to throw his guitar into the washing machine when it needs cleaned, especially at fast spin. Always happens, always shrinks. And of course, it's tea in the hall, so we move from the sublime to the ridiculous in the twinkling of an eye. And I tell you what, this next item does not come into the sublime. And now, a poem with a lesson for us all. A tale of two sunflowers. There was a little daffodil, well, there were quite a few, all lovingly donated by gardeners good and true, to encourage all new Cumnock folk to go on a spending spree. Down at the parish church hall, for 'twas their daffodil tea. And on that glorious March morning, midst the butter scones and jam, the tale of our two sunflowers, yes, our sorry sunflower tale began. Now, daffodils are yellow. Sunflowers are yellow too. And yellow was the stall where you could spend a bob or two, or even a pound if you desired, for we're no skinflints, are we? Especially when the funds were for Fiona's trip to Malawi. So yellow was the colour of each item thereof sold, and many items they were bought that morn, if truth be told, including little tiny packets of little tiny seeds. Who knew that these wee tiny things would lead to a great misdeed? Two members of the parish church, in whose church hall was the tea, bought some seeds with the avowed intent of surreptitiously sussing out which of the two of them was the most green-fingered. They set about their task with glee. By nothing would they be hindered. Should we reveal identities, give personal information, or would that lead to a breach of the dreaded data protection? Yes, we will, and no, it won't. For these two, I would maintain, already have their name, rank, numbers in the public domain. The one, she is our session clerk, who labours valiantly till she drops. The other two is quite committed and often pulls out all the stops. That's because she's an organist. And the two are best of friends, Morag and Christine, though the sunflower might put that in the past tense. Said sunflowers were duly planted in Cumnock and Ochiltree, well tended, fed and watered. They now had to wait and see. Whose sunflower might just take the lead in quality and stature? And when the sunflowers reached a decent height, some photographs were captured. Morag's first. Oh, what a flower. Brilliant yellow, tall and sturdy. And what then of the sunflower, of she who plays the hurdy-gurdy? Not bad, but maybe the Cumnock soil's not really in Ochiltree's league. So our Cumnock gardener hatched a plan. Oh yes, she did indeed. and placed a different sunflower, bold as brass, onto a stalk so green. Sent the photo to friend Morag, who was deflated by what she'd seen. Hey ho, she thought, the Cumnock sun perhaps does brighter shine. I'll just have to admit that Christine's sunflower certainly outdoes mine. Then one day Morag visited Christine and Alec, her better half, when much to Christine's horror, he committed the ultimate gaffe, letting slip the truth about just how little her sunflowers had grown, leaving Morag quite befuddled by the picture she had been shown. Poor Christine had to finally admit her sunflowers were not that fantastic, and that the picture she'd to Morag sent was a sunflower made of plastic. And now, of course, a 3-point sermon we can take from this sorry tale. The first one, that great pretenders will always be revealed. Point 2, Queen Mary's not the only gardener who can be quite contrary. And finally, to retain your friends, of sunflower seeds be wary. Well, thanks to Christine and to Morag for organising the photos, for being good sport. And now we get to feast our eyes on the beauty of God's creation, thanks to our photographers, Morag Gordon and Jim Johnson. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Amen. This past week was a landmark in the life of the town, the life of our schools, school children and their families, because it was the first full week back of the schools. From the time that they closed way back in March because of lockdown, and they had that very strange time of having a virtual school online, then maybe some holiday time, but not the holidays that they probably had planned. And now it's back to school, but not to school probably as they've known it. Just as life in our town is not as we know it, life in our world is not as we know it. So we have a poem called The Kaleidoscope Diary, which I wrote for the children to help them to think about these past few months. The Kaleidoscope Diary. When I was small, my grandpa made a brand new toy for me. A kaleidoscope, he called it. And through it, I could see a world of coloured patterns. For as I turned it round, picture after picture in that kaleidoscope were found. Bright beads of many colours were shuffled with just a twist, each bead changing places, each picture different from the last. Our life is like a kaleidoscope in very many ways. The coloured beads, each part of it. The twist and turn, day following day. And these days have brought us pictures like none we've ever seen, as our lives were turned, yes, upside down by a virus, COVID-19. And now that times have changed again, and back to school we go, let's paint a kaleidoscope diary of the times that we've been through. In the first bright shining picture, find a colour, paint a bead or two. For each part of your life, that time before Corona, it broke through. Beads for people, beads for things, beads for family, beads for friends, beads for school and favourite hobbies, for life as it was back then. And don't forget that in every picture there will be a special bead for Jesus, who is with us day by day in times of joy, in hours of need. What colour will you paint him? Yellow, orange, for the light of the world? Or red, like the Christingle ribbon, showing that on the cross for us he died? So picture these months of Corona. What colour for it would you choose? And don't forget the people and things still there alongside what was new, like clapping on Thursdays to say how great all the key workers were. And the things you learn to make and do that you'd never made or done before. Turn went the days. And though COVID's still here, the worst now seems to have passed. And on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, we're going back to school at last. So paint for us a bright picture to celebrate that special day, with beads for all the people and things that are once more coming your way. Your friends, your teachers, being really at school. And don't forget beads for the hope and the prayer that Corona will disappear from our world's kaleidoscope.
Here are some well-known medical terms and their lesser-known Ayrshire definitions.
Artery.
The study of paintings.
Bacteria.
Back door to cafeteria.
Barium.
What doctors do when patients die.
Benign.
What you be after you be 8.
Caesarean section.
A neighbourhood in Rome.
CAT scan.
Searching for Kitty.
Cauterize.
Made eye contact with her.
Colic.
A sheepdog.
Coma.
A punctuation mark.
Dilate.
To live long.
Fester.
Quicker than someone else.
Fibula.
A small lie.
Impotent.
Distinguished, well known.
Labour pain.
Getting hurt at work.
Medical staff.
A doctor's cane.
Morbid.
A higher offer.
Nitrates.
Rates of pay for working at night. Normally more money than days.
Node.
I knew it.
Outpatient.
A person who has fainted.
Pelvis.
Second cousin to Elvis.
Postoperative.
A letter carrier.
Recovery room.
Place to do upholstery.
Rectum.
Nearly killed him.
Secretion.
Hiding something.
Seizure.
Roman emperor.
Tablet.
A small table.
Terminal illness.
Getting sick at the airport.
Tumour.
1 plus 1 more.
Urine.
Opposite of you're out. And that's all, folks.
And thanks to Andy and Caroline for increasing our medical knowledge. It's good to know that their health is tip-top at the Now Tap. Now we turn to Alec and Ruth again for a really fun song. It's called All God's Creatures Got a Place in the Choir. Now, as we know, sadly, our doors are still closed because we want to keep people safe, and we're still going through the risk assessments and deciding how many people will actually be able to be seated in the church, and many other things like that. And of course, as everybody knows from looking at the news, the one thing we won't have when we go back in a limited way is singing. No singing in the church, no singing anywhere at the moment, especially no group singing. But we're the choir, wherever we are in our homes, whether we sing in the shower, or whether we sit and watch the TV, or watch Tea in the Hall and sing, or watch the services online and sing. Because all God's people got a place in the choir, and there will always be, in whatever way, a choir.
All God's creatures got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher. Some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, applause, or anything they got now. Listen to the bass, it's the one on the bottom where the bullfrog croaks and the hippopotamus moans and groans with a big tutu, and the old cow just goes moo. The dogs and the cats, they take up the middle where the honeybee hums and the cricket fiddles and the donkey brays and the pony neighs and the old gray badger sighs. All God's creatures got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher. Some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, applause, or anything they got now. Listen to the top where the little birds singing and the melodies and the horn out stringing and the hoot owl cries over everything and the blackbirds disagrees. Singing in the night time, singing in the day, the little duck quacks and he's on his way, and the otter hasn't got much to say, and the porcupine talks to himself. All God's preachers got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher. Some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, applause, or anything they got now. It's a simple song of living sung everywhere by the ox and fox and the grizzly bear, and the grumpy alligator and the hawk above, and the sly old weasel and the turtle dove. All God's people's got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher. Some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, applause, or anything they got now. All God's people's got a place in the choir. Some sing low and some sing higher. Some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands, applause, or anything they got now.
Thank you very much again, our Cumnock duo, for that. And now we turn to a wee bit of New Cumnock history. In our quiz we had the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and that's where we go for our week's New Cumnock history, or maybe we should call it New Cumnock mystery. And that's our story for today, history and geography. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. These are the ruins, obviously, because they were built in around about 600 BC, which is about 2,500 years ago. And Babylon at that time, of course, was a very powerful area of the world. Powerful partly because you can see that these very important rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, were flowing near it, and it was obviously an important route between the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf. Nowadays, of course, modern day Babylon is modern day Iraq. Baghdad, we know. We might, because of the war there, know of Basra down in the south. It was a British army base. You can see Najaf. I think you've probably heard of Najaf. I think there were quite a few battles and skirmishes in the war at Najaf. And just to the east of Najaf, the eastern side of the Euphrates River, there is a town there called El Hilla. and that was the ancient city of Babylon, where the ruins that you saw there are. The Hanging Gardens were built by Nebuchadnezzar II. He was a very enterprising man, and he was very interested in architecture, just very interested in developing his nation. And we also know about Nebuchadnezzar because he appears in the Bible in the book of Daniel. He was king of Babylon from 605 to 561 BC, and that was about the time that Daniel and his fellow Israelites were captured by the Babylonians, and they were taken off into exile. And we know the story of Daniel. He was a very intelligent young man. He was part of the elite of Israel. And Nebuchadnezzar took all these intelligent Israelites. He taught them, he schooled them for years and years so that they could become his helpers and his servants and help to develop his country. But of course, Daniel was faithful to God, and we know probably from Sunday school the stories of Daniel in the lion's den, where Nebuchadnezzar threw him because Daniel didn't obey him, but God rescued him. And Daniel eventually was so taken, Nebuchadnezzar was eventually so impressed by Daniel and his intelligence, but also his ability to interpret the dreams that Nebuchadnezzar was having, that King Nebuchadnezzar II made Daniel, as we read in Daniel chapter 5, verse 11, he made Daniel chief of the Magi. That's an important word for us when we come to Christmas time, because the Magi were the people who came from the east, the wise men from the east, or the Magi from the east, came to Jerusalem to look for Jesus. But meanwhile, back at the Hanging Gardens, you can see just how many fired bricks that it has taken to build the structure. And Nebuchadnezzar just absolutely loved to build things. He was always building things. And even now they say that scattered around the deserts of Iraq, he produced about 55 million bricks. And if you look at these ones, these were made locally. But even bricks that are made locally, people like to put their stamp of ownership on them. So here we see a brick made at the bank and one made at the foundry at Afton, New Cumnock. And Nebuchadnezzar was exactly the same. He liked to put his stamp of ownership on things. If you look very closely at this brick, and every single brick, before it was fired, it would be fired just in the sun, but every single brick had his stamp on it. The writing that you can see there, you can see a bit more clearly here. It looks to me, the one on the bottom left-hand side is closest to what the markings on the brick are. To me, it looks just like wee nails, but you can see that it's a kind of writing called cuneiform writing. And if you look across from left to right, you can see how it developed over the years, and you can see some of the different words that are there, words that you would find on this brick. So if you go from these shapes back to the clearer bricks, then you can see that same kind of writing, that cuneiform writing, is on this brick that will be found in the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and elsewhere in Babylon. What does it say? What did he put on the brick when he had it inscribed? Nebuchadnezzar II, king of Babylon, who cares for the Nsangila temple, that's the temple of the god Marduk in Babylon, and of the Izida temple, that's the temple of Nabu in Borsippa, which again is one of the gods of the region. And he is the first son of Nabopolassar, son of Babylon am I. In other words, this is my brick, this is my temple, this is my hanging gardens, and don't you touch it. It was his mark of ownership. Now, why am I telling you all of that? It's very interesting because one of our quizzes had the Hanging Gardens of Babylon in it. Nope, I'm not telling you it because of that. I'm telling you about this Nebuchadnezzar's brick from Babylon because of its connection with New Cumnock, because this is Tea in the Hall. And if you want in the door for Tea in the Hall, you have to have some connection with New Cumnock, even if you are Nebuchadnezzar II, king of Babylon. And sure enough, there is a connection between that brick and our church. And to tell the story, we have to introduce three of our own wise men, Jim Murray, Davy Wallace and Ian Harper. Sadly, Davy and Jim are no longer with us. But about maybe 8-9 years ago, we were having a huge clean out and clear out. We got a skip, and it was Ian that was standing nearest the skip, and he would have thrown you in it if you had stood still for long enough. So we get into the wee nooks and crannies, including underneath the pulpit, just behind the organ. There's at the back, there's a door, and a lot of different things are kept in there. The wee holders for the communion cups were kept in there. A large piece of coal that we use at the Harvest Thanksgiving is kept in there. And there was a whole lot of old rubbish just lying there. So the men were obviously in a ruthless mood, and out these things came and into the skip. And then there was this old thing that looked like a flagstone. And we were just about to put it in the skip. And I said, no, look at the back of it. And sure enough, on the back of what we thought was an old flagstone that should be put in the tip was this. And I kid you not, this was one of the bricks from Babylon round about 500 BC when Nebuchadnezzar II was king and when the prophet Daniel was one of his courtiers, his main man. And there it was, lying under the pulpit of New Cumnock Parish Church. It's still in the church. It's in monetary value, it's not worth that much because, as I said, there were 55 million of them produced by Nebuchadnezzar. But here's the $1 million question. How on earth did a brick from Babylon, from El-Hilla, modern day Iraq, get all the way to New Cumnock? The answer is nobody knows. Some people say that it came originally from Arthur Memorial Church, but that wouldn't help us any as to how it got from Babylon. I think maybe the best theory is that one of our soldiers, our local soldiers, when they were either First World War or Second World War, excuse me, when they were in Mesopotamia, when they were in Iraq, they saw these bricks and they brought one back in their kit bag. Maybe not somebody from New Cumnock, maybe just somebody who knew the minister at New Cumnock and wanted to give them a gift. If they brought it back in their kit bag, they were very dedicated because it is quite heavy. But that's the only thing we can think of. If anybody at all can shed light on how that Babylonian brick got to the underneath the pulpit in New Cumnock, well, please get in touch. But isn't it amazing to think of the connections between New Cumnock and Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel and that brick and the Magi, the wise men. And the connection isn't just the brick and how it came to be here, but that we can say, just as the wise men said, we have come to worship him. The hanging gardens of Babylon and all the stones that are there, and the stone that made its way, the brick that made its way to New Cumnock Parish Church, who knows how. Which brings us to our final guest, as always, whose smile would turn anybody's heart to stone. Hello, it's me, the Reverend Jolie. My friends call me Angelina. I thought I'd make a special effort this week and try and smile. So I was practising. But as you can see, it hasn't done me any good, because round about Thursday, I think I was overdoing it and I pulled a muscle. And that was it. But I'm here to give you some words of wisdom, words of inspiration, words of good cheer. It was great to hear all the folk today. These slides were marvellous, and the songs, and that wee poem about Christine and Morag, what they got up to. And I was thinking about the choir. It is a shame that we're not able to sing in the churches the new. But hopefully that day will come. A few years ago, I thought I could maybe get into the choir to sing, because I like music. So I went up to a choir master and I said, "Can I sing?" He said, "What do you sing?" I said, "Well, I usually sing alto." So he let me in and we had a choir practice as usual. And then at the end he said, "I think you should sing tenor." I said, "Well, no, I don't have a high voice, and I'm not a man, and what do you mean?" He said, "I think you should sing 10 or 20 Mile Away." I was shocked. So shocked. Because, as I've just sung, all God's creatures got a place in the choir. Mind you, the song doesn't say where that place might be and how many mile away it would be. I had a parishioner come in this week, and he was just kind of unburdening himself, I think, and just wanting to talk, and he was talking about his wife and his family, and we get on to talking about a lot of things. And he said, "You know, Minister," he said, "I've never, ever, ever had a problem with the 7th commandment." I said, "That's very good. You've never had a problem with your wife with the 7th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery." "No, Minister, I've never had that problem with my wife. The only problem I've had is with the 6th commandment, thou shalt not murder." Maybe it's just as well I'm single. Sometimes I think that. Well, here's another wee story about a husband and wife. They'd been married a long, long time. And the husband was getting a wee bit tearful a wee bit nostalgic about things. And then he said, right, he said, there's a case up in the cupboard. And we haven't looked in it for a long time. Don't know what's in it. Will we bring it down? She said, aye, we can bring it down. So they brought the case down, see if there was anything, maybe a sentimental value or that in it. So they brought the case down. And in the case were 2 wee knitted teddy bears. And £50,000 on pound notes. What's this? He said, what are these 2 wee teddy bears? Well, the woman said, every time I got angry with you, I knitted a wee teddy bear. Oh, he said, in 40 years of marriage, you've only been angry with me twice. That is beautiful. So, what about all this money here? £50,000 in pound notes. Oh, she said, that's the money I got for selling all the other knitted teddy bears £1 a time. Well, folks, that's me. I have to get my wee book out and my mirror and practice smiling again, and maybe you'll see some improvement next week. Goodbye. Have a good week. Thanks to all of our contributors today. And I think I forgot after the slides to thank Jim and Morag for their pictures. Really, they're beautiful, and they really allow us to stop and look and admire and be blessed by God's creation, which means that they help us to stop and to look and to admire God Himself. So please join us next week for Tea in the Hall. God bless.
To tea in the hall, come one and come all, from Saturdays at 9. There's no bacon rolls, no scones, no snowballs, and nothing to drink at all. But we will share friendship and fellowship, fun quizzes, some stories, some talk. So might you in tea and a biscuit all day, please join us for tea in the hall. Oh, the doors are shut, the church all locked up, there's nothing going on in the hall. But just the same, we'll praise God's name, He doesn't change at all. So now it's time in your house and mine to